Hello, everybody, and welcome to a special Patreon-only episode of Constructed Criticism. It's a little more laid-back episode because it's going to be pretty long, Matt.
Yeah.
So we kind of had talked about. I mean, you specifically kind of just wanted to change what we were doing this year for the Patreon-only episodes. We had talked about doing the what we play and why episodes. You wanted to add those back at the end of the cast. We actually have another episode next month planned already for Deck Doctor that somebody wants us to do. Unless they change their mind. So we're going to be mostly doing deck doctors and stuff like that for the patrons, but we also are going to do a full set review of Theros Beyond Death right now. And the way this is going to work is we're going to give cards a grade from A to F. A means they're one of the best cards in the set. You can do pluses or minuses too on these, Matt, if you want. Um, B means these are something that is pretty good. Could see myself like kind of building around these kind of cards to build a new deck. This is something that pulls me into something. C is just kind of your classic role player across standard typically. D is I don't know that this card is gonna see play, but maybe it will. And F is just that ain't happening, fam. These are the little max of a standard.
Little max of standard. Nice.
But yeah, this is gonna be a more laid back episode. There's gonna be no editing and stuff like that. So I'm got a drink next to me. We're just kind of chill and go over these, Matt. And you want to go ahead and start us off with the first card in white?
Sure. So Alseid of Life's Bounty. Dub for an enchantment creature, 1/1 lifelink. Pay 1, sacrifice it. Target creature or enchantment you control gains protection from the color of your choice until end of turn.
I don't really know why I would want this over something like God's Willing.
Yeah, I mean, so Dauntless Bodyguard saw some play, but this obviously costs mana to activate, so...
And it's only a 1/1.
Right. Protection is probably a bit better than Indestructible most of the time, but even still.
Yeah, I would think that this card is an
I would give
F.
this I would give this a D. I
Yeah.
mean, there's some chance that there's a white weenie deck, but
Is this?
unlikely.
Do you want this? Like even
Well, so I mean, like there's like Heliod in the format, right? Like maybe there's some kind of a lifelink theme.
maybe the pips matter even. I could see that.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, any 1/1 for one's gonna have the pip, but
Sure. I'm just saying like maybe I'm just saying over something like God's Willing or Sheltering Light or stuff like that.
right. It's also an enchantment, so if there's like a build around enchantment deck, maybe it goes there.
All right, I'll go to D minus. It could see some sideboard play. Maybe you could see some main deck play in like some really specific situations.
Yep.
Next up.
Next card, Archon of the Falling Stars. 4 dub, flying 4/4. When Archon of Falling Stars dies, you may return target enchantment from your graveyard to the battlefield.
I think that there's no chance that this 6 mana 4/4 sees play.
Yeah, I think it's just an F. The reanimate ability is just too expensive,
and
like
it's
a
when
4/4
it
body
dies, right?
for 6. Yeah, I mean, I don't think that is a huge downside. If anything, like, I mean, I guess it would be better if it was an ETB,
Right,
but
exactly.
honestly, it just doesn't matter. I haven't seen any enchantments that are worth reanimating for 6 mana, so.
Now let's move on to the next one. I actually haven't seen this card yet.
Next card is Archon of Sun's Grace, 2 dub. It is a flying lifelink 3/4. Pegasus creatures you control have lifelink. Constellation. Whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, create a 2/2 white Pegasus creature token with flying.
This is pretty good.
Yeah, this is certainly the kind of card that would cause you to play an enchantment deck.
I'm a like the two like just free 2/2 flyers like that's like a real thing.
Yeah, it's not terribly statted either, and it has lifelink. All the other creatures that it makes have lifelink as long as it's in play. So
Yeah, I would give this card a B.
yeah, I would also give it a B.
Do you have any idea of like what kind of like do you think this is just? I mean, obviously, Banishing Light is the next card is right next to it. That'll automatically go in any deck that plays this probably. Is there
Right.
any other cards that you're looking for to? I mean, I haven't looked at
It
this.
depends on what the enchantment creatures are, right? Like, also Heliod is also an enchantment, so
Sure.
there are certainly ways you can go. There's some sagas in the set, so we'll see.
Yeah, I will be
I mean,
interested to
enchantment
see.
removal is the highest on the list, obviously. But
Yeah, enchantment removal just slam dunk. But something like like an enchantment that draws a card or stuff like that. Like any.
Yeah, I mean, there's the Omen, the Blue Omen, which we'll get to later, and things like
Yeah.
that.
All right. What's up next? Banishing Light.
Next we have Banishing Light, which is it's a reprint. It's 2 dub enchantment. When Banishing Light enters the battlefield, exile target non-land permanent and opponent controls until Banishing Light leaves the battlefield.
I wish this card was in standard all the time.
Yeah, it's a definitely a good card. I don't think that it's necessarily B worthy because you don't need to
No,
build around it. Is the thing?
no. It's like just a good removal spell. It's gonna be, it's more main deckable than something like, uh, Prison Realm even,
Right.
and that's saying something because Prison Realm has definitely seen a ton of play. It's just nice that it picks off, anything.
Yeah, especially when we're in a set with enchantments, right? Like it's nice to be able to deal with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so I think that C plus is totally reasonable for this card.
Yeah, it's not even to say that it's worse than some of the cards that we're going to put in B. It's just not. It's not going to pull you in a direction because it's ubiquitous enough that you don't need to go into a direction for it.
Yeah,
Like
and
if
I
you're
I
playing
don't
white, you're probably going to play some Vanishing Lights
I don't
unless
I
enchant removal
don't
is rampant.
right, and I don't know that this card existing suddenly makes decks that were playing Prison Realm, you know, it's not like decks don't exist that because this card wasn't there instead of Prison Realm, right?
Right.
So I think that C plus is totally fine, and I know that Fires is gonna definitely want this card.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a good card against fires, so it'll be
Yeah.
interesting to see how that plays out.
Yep. But it answers it when it answers Fires too. So
Sure.
Next up we have
Next up, yeah, the Birth of Meletis. 1 dub. It's a saga. So with the sagas, after your draw step, you add a lore counter to it, and then after the third lore counter, you sacrifice it. It also enters the battlefield with 1 lore counter. So uh, the first turn, it's going to search your library for a basic plains card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. The second turn, it will create a 0/4 colorless wall creature token with Defender. It's an artifact creature. And then the third mode is gain 2 life.
Do you wish that those were 1 and 2 were just in the other order?
Um, no, not necessarily. I think getting the land first is actually better.
Okay, so then this is just like Wall of Omens.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely comparable to Wall of Omens. It's not as good as Wall of Omens probably, but it does have some other things going for it. Like I'm gonna give this card a B because I kind of want to play it in a Doom Foretold shell.
Sure. I don't hate this card at all. I would give this card like a C plus, almost B minus range. I think that this is the kind of card that there are decks that might not exist because a card like this wasn't existing, and now that it does, like you talk about Doom Foretold, right? Like the fact that this kills itself is something that wasn't true about Wall of Omens, but you get to keep the wall around.
Right.
So I don't know. I think this card is pretty big game. I do wish that those two are in the other order, but maybe it doesn't matter.
You'd rather have the wall first?
I think so, kind of just depending. I mean, obviously there are formats where it doesn't matter, but I think there are going to be more formats where it does matter, and you need the 2/2 red, the 0/4 right away.
I think guaranteeing the land drop is more important even.
But the problem is like in the games where you don't play this on turn 2 and you play it later, then that wall can be much more relevant in those later turns to be needed right away.
Sure, but I mean if you have other mana, hopefully you can just deal with something with another card,
Sure, because this is so cheap.
right?
Okay. Well, I'm excited. I think this card will see some play.
Next up, we have Captivating Unicorn, 4 dub. Um, it is a 4/4 with Constellation. Whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, tap target creature and opponent controls.
F.
Yep, just an F. It's a limited card.
Yeah, definitely
Uh,
not going to see Constructor play.
Next up, we have Commanding Presence, 3 dub. And it's an enchantment aura. Enchant creature. Enchanted creature has +2/+2. Has first strike, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, create a 1/1 white human soldier creature token.
Is there a chance, Matt?
I do not think so. Again, I think this is just a limited card, so I give it an F.
I'm gonna give it a D minus, only because First Strike is a pretty good ability. Like if I would be pretty like for example, if like Carnage Tyrant suddenly exists, I don't actually hate this card that much.
Sure. I Don't think that Carnage Tyrant ever really needs the help, but I'm sure that there are other cards that would want something like this. But either way, I think it's an F. I think that you probably can even just find something better. There's even another aura in this set that's better than this, I think. So,
Okay. Well, Dawn Evangel is next.
Dawn Evangel, 2 dub, enchantment creature. Whenever a creature dies, if an aura you controlled was attached to it, return target creature card with converted mana cost 2 or less from your graveyard to your hand.
This one's better than
And
I
it's
was
a
expecting.
2/3.
I don't know. This is like it's kind of weird.
I'm gonna give this a D. I think that it's pretty unlikely. Like you would have to have a dedicated aura deck, and usually those are really bad because you just don't have enough ways to not get 2 for 1.
Even then, why is this the card that you want in that deck?
Well, I think it does generate a lot of value. Like if you actually do have to, if they have to kill a creature with an aura on it, like you're not getting 2 for 1, right? If you can bring something back.
Right.
But yeah, I think it's a D.
What happens if an aura is attached to this and it dies?
It's whenever a creature, so it will count itself.
Okay. That's interesting then. Daxos, Blessed by the Sun, is white for 2 and a star. He's a demigod. He's got the toughness equal to your devotion to white, and whenever another creature you control enters the battlefield or dies, you gain 1 life. It's white.
Yeah, so it's a 2/2. I think it's probably a B minus, B minus C plus range, I'd say.
Really?
Yeah, I think that if there's a deck that wants this, then it's going to be a good effect in that deck. Like we already have the gods, so the double pip is super relevant. It does do some of the life gain things, so Heliod gonna really like that. And I think that it's gonna be a 2/5 often enough.
I think I'm going to give this card a C minus. I think that the only thing that this card has going for it really is the white. Like, I don't know that if I'm playing a deck with something like Heliod that I really want this very grindy, slow thing. I mean, maybe it's possible that the life gain is just way better than I'm expecting, but I'm gonna give it a C minus. I think that it will see some play as a role player, but it won't be something that pulls me into the white deck.
Honestly, I think the only real downside to this card is that it's a legendary creature.
That's fair. I mean, I just don't think that the card is that good.
I think it's fine, and like it has a lot of things going for it, right? Like things that normally wouldn't matter but do. Like it's an
Sure.
enchantment, which is nice. The life gain is good. The double pip is good.
Sure.
I think honestly, just being a 2 power and like a bunch of toughness creature for 2 mana is also going to be surprisingly good in the format. So
Okay.
okay, next we have Daybreak Chimera, 3 dub.
0.
I'm sorry.
0 because of F. Can we get an F?
It's a 3/3 with flying. This creature costs X less to cast, where X is your devotion to white. Do you really think this is a 0?
I don't know. Do you think that like I mean so do you think that the 3 like you just want a 2 mana 3/3 in that deck?
I think a 2 mana 3/3 flyer is just a really good card. Like Sarah Avenger was
Sure.
was
Okay.
great.
All right. You brought me up. I'll give it a C. I think that it could be a role player in some deck.
Yeah, I would give this a C as well.
All right, fine.
Um,
It's such
okay,
an
next we have
aggressive jump. Like people didn't get to hear my thoughts. I just went straight from F to to C.
all right. Next we have Dreadful Apathy, 2 dub, enchant creature. Enchanted creature can't attack or block. Pay 3, exile enchanted creature.
Is this a reprint?
I don't think so.
I swear we've seen this exact same effect.
Um,
Either way,
I do not, but it's a reprint. Yeah, it doesn't look like it is.
Either way, I don't think this card is like in a world where I have Banishing Light. This card just seems like some extra steps.
I agree. It's probably an F. It's a limited card.
Yep. The next one people are pretty excited about, Matt.
All right, next up we have Eidolon of Obstruction, 1 dub, enchant creature spirit. It's 2/1 with first strike. Loyalty abilities of planeswalkers you control cost 1 more to activate, or planeswalker abilities your opponents control, rather.
So, talk to me about the play patterns here, Matt. Like what? So I play this, and now you can't play your Teferi minus on time. You can't play your Narset minus on time. You couldn't play your Oko minus on time, but luckily we don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, I mean,
Or
I
Oko
think.
plus. Sorry, I forgot his is the plus. Gosh.
Yeah, the planeswalkers not being able to activate on curve is not nothing. I'm not sure that I think that that's good enough though, because there's going to be plenty of games you're going to play where there's just not a planeswalker in play, and I'm not convinced that a 2/1 first strike for 2 is going to be pulling its weight.
It's so funny. If this card had a red pip and instead of that one and had haste, how much more into this card are you?
Well, I don't know that the mana for red white is super supported in this format, but if it were, then yeah, I would be a lot more interested in it. I
Because
mean,
then it just like is a planeswalker slayer, right? Because it's just a haste creature that also makes it harder for them to activate and like.
yeah, I mean, even beyond being a planeswalker slayer, just like having the ability to attack on the turn it comes out, it's like in a lot of ways it effectively costs less mana that way, right?
Right. I would be surprised if this card saw a ton of play. I'm willing to give it a D.
Yeah, I would give it a D as well.
But I think that it's got an uphill battle to climb if it's gonna achieve much in standard.
Right. Next up, we have a saga. It's Elspeth Conquers Death. 3 dub dub. Uh, the first mode is exile target permanent opponent controls with converted mana cost 3 or greater. The second mode is non-creature spells your opponents cast cost 2 more to cast until your next turn. And then the final mode is return target creature or planeswalker card from your graveyard to the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on it, or a loyalty counter on it.
I think this card is better than people are thinking.
I think that this is just so much like the Eldest Reborn.
Right, which I think people just aren't comparing it to that.
And that's surprising because it's like almost identical in functionality. I think it's worse than the Eldest Reborn, but
Yeah, I think that the second ability is certainly worse.
yeah, the first ability is better. The second ability is probably worse, and then the third ability is a little worse
You think the third ability is worse only because
because you can't hit their graveyard.
yeah. I mean, that is certainly was really powerful about the Eldest Reborn was getting back a planeswalker that you killed from your opponent somehow. That was almost always game ending.
Right.
I do I do want to put a loyalty counter on my creature though. So
Sure.
I saw a really funny tweet from Ziggy. He says, "If I have a loyalty creature, can my opponents take it?"
Yeah, I remember seeing this tweet as well.
And then I said, "Only if it's an act of treason."
Nice.
It's a good joke. What do you think, man? Like, I would give this card. I think that this is a B minus.
I'd give it a C.
Just straight up C. Just role
It might
players.
even I don't know, it might even be worse than that. I don't see it seeing a lot of main deck play. I think it's going to be a sideboard card if anything.
Okay.
I don't know that we have like a grade specifically for sideboard play, but
We've done that in the past, just giving cards a sideboard grade.
yeah.
We actually did it before LR, to be honest,
Nice.
back in the day. Elspeth's son's Nemesis is next. She's 2 and a white for a Elspeth legendary planeswalker with 5 loyalty. You -1 her. Up to 2 target creatures you control each get +1/+2, or sorry,
+2/+1.
+2/+1 until end of turn. -2 create 2 1/1s. -3 gain 5 life. And she has 6 mana escape. So this is the first time we are doing this escape.
And it's escape to exile 4 for what it's worth.
Yep.
Which is actually pretty low, I think.
Yeah. So really quick, I just want to explain escape, and then we're gonna do escape plus number from here on out. But basically, you can cast this card from your graveyard for its escape cost. So for 6 mana, you can exile 4 cards from your graveyard and cast Elspeth. So in the future, for the rest of this, we're just gonna say escape and then the number. But escape 6 is not that escape 4 for 6 mana is pretty low.
Yeah, I think this card is at least an A.
Yeah, I think that this card can see play in white aggressive decks, in blue control decks, in white mid-range decks. Like this card certainly can see play in a lot of different decks. I'm not going to give it like the A plus. This is going to redefine standard kind of territory, but I'm willing to give it like an A minus. It's gonna both pull me into decks and be one of the premier cards in standard, or at least possibly. I think that I would compare this card on power level to something like Vivian Arkbow Ranger.
Yeah, I mean Vivian saw a lot of play too, for what it's worth. She was definitely format defining for a long time.
That's true. I mean, and she also sees. Wait, am I saying the wrong thing?
Oh no, you're talking about Vivian Arcbone Ranger. Yeah, I mean that card was also fine. I was thinking of the other one, but yeah,
Yeah,
Vivian Reed was the one I was thinking of.
Vivian Reed was that was an A plus for standard. I think that this won't get to that level. I think it'll be for standard. I think it'll be closer to Vivian Arkbow Ranger, where it's in like four different decks. It's a card you want to draw in those decks. The games start to warp around it because of it, like that kind of stuff.
I mean, honestly, I think that this card is just like Vivian Arcbow Ranger, almost on the face, and then it has Escape, which is
Ooh, that's interesting.
pretty nutty to me.
Okay.
I think that like it has modes for basically every scenario. Like if you're ahead, the +2/+1 is great. If you're at parity, the 2/1/1s is going to be pretty good. If you're behind, like gaining 5 life isn't going to necessarily save you, but it's not going to hurt, right? Like we've all played Kenrith,
Well,
and
and both of the 1/1s and the 5 life, are behind modes, right?
yeah. And I think that people are really underestimating how good the 5 life is going to be when it's on a repeatable effect like that. Like
Right.
they're basically just not going to be able to stop you from getting 5 life every turn with this card.
Well, not every turn, right? Because you've got to.
I realize it goes down to 2. Yeah, I realize, but I mean, I
How
guess
many times
yeah.
do you think it's reasonable to bring Elspeth back into game 3 in some decks?
Um, I don't know. That's really hard to evaluate at this point. Like just because I don't know how full your graveyard's going to be.
Sure,
But yeah, I think 2 times at least, right?
but two seems free to me. Like
Yeah.
I think most decks that will play this card will either get to 2 or win the game or lose the game like around those, like depending on how things play out. But 2 seems pretty achievable.
Right. Next up, we have Favorite of Iroas, 2 dub, Constellation. Or it's a 2/2 with Constellation. Whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, Favorite of Iroas gains double strike until end of turn. This is
Okay.
just clearly an F.
Okay, I agree.
Next, we have Flicker of Fate, 1 dub, uh, instant exile target creature or enchantment, then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. So this is just like a momentary blink effect.
Which
Um,
I think we had Cloud Shift and that wasn't even like standard playable.
yeah. I don't think that this effect is playable with just this text box. Like we've had a lot of this effect, and it's basically never seen play. Momentary blink sees play in Pauper, has seen play in formats because it has the rebound or the
Right.
flashback or whatever. You know?
Right. Let's go into Ghostly Bears. I'm going to agree with you on the F on that one.
Yeah, I didn't say F, but I was implying it.
Yeah, I got what you were laying down, bro. We got
Uh,
a 3 white for a 3/4 human and cleric enchantment creature. Sorry. Whenever another creature you control attack, it gets +0/+1 until end of turn. F.
yeah, it's an F.
It's especially weird because it's like when your creatures attack and it's like a 3/4.
Yeah, it's just like gaining toughness when it's not really that relevant. Um,
Helios Suncrown is next.
yeah, so Heliod Suncrowned, 2 dub. It's a legendary enchantment creature god. It's indestructible 5/5. As long as your devotion to white is less than 5, Heliod isn't a creature. Whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature or enchantment you control, and then you can pay 2. Another target creature gains lifelink until end of turn.
So, what do we think?
I think that it's between a B and an A, right? It really just depends on if the deck comes together. It's something that definitely interests me in building decks around it, but it's hard to say whether it will come together because it's basically one of those situations where it's either a 10 or a 2, right? Like if either it's going to be great and define that archetype, or it's going to do nothing.
So, we have seen devotion decks that just didn't basically play very much of the god before, right?
Yeah, but I think that those gods were a lot worse, and this god really seems like what White Devotion would want to be doing.
Okay. So I'm gonna give this card a B plus, I should say. Like, I don't think it's an A. I think that I do think that it is more interesting in Pioneer to me than it is for Standard, to be honest. Like, I think that its combo potential is sweet, and could be format changing. Whereas in Standard, I think that it will just be an above average role player in those decks and won't be necessarily like the linchpin of the decks.
Sure. I mean, I think that the one card that I see being the linchpin of White Devotion over this card is Elspeth. But
Sure. Okay.
okay, next
So
up we have.
what are you gonna give it then?
I told you somewhere between a B and an A. I mean,
Okay.
I don't know what I don't know whether it's important for me to go on record with one or the other.
And
It's an A if it's in a deck. It's a B right now because I don't know.
sure. Helios Intervention is next. It's probably one of the worst interventions.
Sure. So Heliod's intervention is X dub dub instant.
Maybe it's
Choose
better than I
one.
think it is.
Choose one. Destroy X target artifacts and or enchantments. Target player gains twice X life.
I actually think this card is probably a sideboard card.
Yeah, I think it makes sense as a sideboard card, especially if they're heavy enchantment decks.
Yeah, I like that. Like, in maybe sometimes you can get like you can have the X life against aggro decks in certain types of archetypes if that makes sense, and
Right.
so it like fills multiple roles in your sideboard, which are the kind of sideboard cards I like.
Sure. It's not even impossible for this card to see play in older formats if the meta game shifts that way, right? Like there are probably better answers to artifacts in most scenarios, but there's probably not a lot of better answers to enchantments.
Sure. Okay.
Next we have Helios Pilgrim. This one is a reprint. 2 dub
This art is sweet.
for a 1/2. When Helios Pilgrim enters the battlefield, you may search your library for an aura card, reveal it, put it to your hand, then shuffle your library.
Hottest thing I ever saw in Magic. I literally would just had a. I was cleaning my house and I had a stream on, and I don't. Somebody put a Splinter Twin on their Helios Pilgrim, and I was like, "What just happened?"
Yeah. I think this card's a D. I mean, and I feel pretty confident giving that rating because it has seen play before, but it was always pretty bad. So
I'll give it a D minus.
yeah.
Helios Punishment is next, Matt. This one is interesting to me. Why don't you
So
talk about it?
Heliod's Punishment is 1 dub, enchant creature. When Heliod's Punishment enters the battlefield with Heliod's Punishment enters the battlefield with 4 task counters on it. Enchanted creature can't attack or block. It loses all abilities and has tap remove a task counter from Heliod's Punishment. Then, if you have no task counters on it, destroy Heliod's Punishment. So it's essentially a. Is it
Pacifism that they can kill.
Well, it's an arrest, right? It's better than pacifism.
Sure.
That they can tap their creature 4 times, which is, actually forever away, and destroy it. So I think this card is actually
like
pretty good.
Yeah, 2-mana arrest is like a pretty cheap arrest.
Right.
So
yeah, I don't know. It's really hard to say whether that's good. Like we also have devotion in this set, so you're like more incentivized to play permanent based removal.
Right.
Arrest
is almost O-ring, right? Like.
Yeah, I'm gonna give this a C.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a C minus. No, I don't know. This card just looks better. I think it looks worse than it is. I'm gonna join you at C. I think this card is interesting.
Yeah, I'm definitely curious to play with it. So, next up we have Hero of the Pride, 1 dub for a 2/2. Whenever you cast a spell that targets Hero of the Pride, creatures you control get +1/+0 until end of turn.
I've heard this card, rumblings about this card in Pauper, which is interesting. Sure. I'm not sure what the decks would look like to make this card good. I do agree that like this ability on a card is pretty good.
I think that if we had like a Crone Hoplite, or a Crone Crusader rather, in this format, this card would be good. But I think in this standard, it's not going to see no play, so I'm going to give it an F.
I'm going to give it a D. I think there's a chance that, like, as sets rotate in and out, this card is powerful enough to maybe a C minus even, like, just be like a kind of a role player in some deck that exists.
Do you think that it's worthwhile rating cards based on sets that could be printed?
I don't know. Like I mean I'm rating this card in a vacuum, right?
Yeah, but I mean, well, that doesn't really work though, right? You can't rate the cards in a vacuum because like a lot of them are Fs in a vacuum, basically.
Sure.
I think
That's fair.
I think that it makes more sense to rate them in the standard format right now, and right now it's an F.
Okay. I'm gonna stick with a D. I think this card has potential to see play in Pauper. I think that being said, there is a world in which it could play C in standard, and I'm not gonna give it an F.
Okay. Um, Next up we have Hero of the Winds, 3 dub, 1/4 flyer. Whenever you cast a spell that targets Hero of Winds, creatures you control get +1/+0 until end of turn.
Now
So
there's two of them. This one has flying.
it's the exact same effect, but for 4 mana, and it's a 1/4 flyer instead of a 2/2.
I think this one's a lot worse.
Yeah, I agree. Even if the deck was a thing, I think this card is worse.
Yeah, I'm gonna give this one an F.
Yep, me too.
Reprint.
Yeah, so we have a reprint of Idealic Tutor, 2 dub, sorcery. Search your library for an enchantment card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library.
Okay. I think this card is a little bit overhyped right now. I would be surprised if this card like make or breaks something huge, but I mean it's still probably like a B minus.
Oh wow, we're so far off.
You gonna give it like an F?
I was gonna give it between a D- and an F. Yeah.
All right. Okay. I can see that argument for what it's worth.
Yeah, I think 3 mana conditional tutors like that are just not very good.
So here's the reason I give it a B minus is because there's just so many enchantments now that I mean 3 mana is a lot though.
Yeah, it just takes your whole turn, right? Like it's.
Yeah, I mean the thing is like it's also competing against like like just compare this to Fae of Wishes.
Like, yeah, I mean, or any draw spell, right? Like there's a draw spell in this set.
Yeah,
that's like draw 3 and discard an enchantment or whatever. Like
yeah, maybe I'll join you lower. I'm gonna give it a C minus. I think that it will be like a bad role player if it's in any deck.
Sure. Next up, we have Indomitable Will, 1 dub, flash, enchanted creature gets +1/+2.
F. This is not the kind of aura that you want.
Yeah, I agree. It's an F. It's just a limited combat trick.
Next we have Karametra's Blessing.
Yes, Karametra's Blessing.
It's 1 white for an instant creature, just +2/+2. If it's an enchanted creature, if it's an enchanted creature or an enchantment creature, it also gains hexproof and indestructible. This card seems good.
To be fair, it is just white to cast, not 1 white.
Oh, sorry.
Just to clarify, just only because I've been doing it the other way the whole time.
Sorry. Yeah, my bad. Yeah, it's just a dub.
So it's single white to cast, yes.
This card seems good.
I'm
gonna give this a C minus. I think this is like. I think it's totally possible this is actually really important for a deck that wants this effect to exist.
Sure. Yeah, it's gonna really depend on which enchantment creatures are viable, but yeah, I think it's certainly a powerful version of this effect. So I'll give it a C.
Okay. Next up, we're going down to Lagonan Band Storyteller. Matt, what does that card do?
So 3 dub for a 3/4. When it enters the battlefield, you may put target enchantment card from a graveyard on top, or from your graveyard on top of your library. If you do, you gain life equal to its converted mana cost.
It's a lot of words. It's a interesting body. I don't know. I think that it's unlikely for this card to be good enough.
Yeah, I think it's an F.
Okay, I'm gonna join you there.
Next up, we have Leonin of the Lost Pride, 1 dub. When Leonin of the Lost Pride dies, exile target creature or exile target card from an opponent's graveyard. Rather,
I think that we just have much better rate creatures than the 3/1 for 2 that has such a mediocre effect.
Yeah, I mean there have been times when like a 3/1 for 2 has seen play, but it's pretty much always bad, right?
Right, I agree. This one just if it sees play, it's not going to be meaningful in any way.
Yeah, and honestly, the 1 generic mana in the mana cost is actually a hindrance rather than an upside, which it normally is. So,
sure,
I'm gonna give it an F.
I'm gonna join you.
Next up, we have Nixborn Courser, 1 dub for a 2/4 vanilla.
Enchantment creature, Centaur Scout.
It is an enchantment creature, but it's pretty clearly an F.
Yep.
Next up, Omen of the Sun.
First Omen.
Yeah, Omen of the Sun, 2 dub Flash. When Omen of the Sun enters the battlefield, create 2/1/1 human soldier creature tokens, and you gain 2 life. So on the surface, it's 3 mana, raise the alarm, and you gain 2 life. And then, like with all the other omens, it has 3 mana, sacrifice it to scry 2.
I don't know, man.
I think
It's
this is probably decent, actually.
possible that the devotion deck wants this.
Yeah, I think this could be decent. I mean, it's also pretty nice with Elspeth, right? Like making the 2/1/1s, especially at instant speed, curves right into Elspeth, which I like a lot.
Sure.
It does a lot of the things that I wanted to do. It gives me a devotion pip, in addition to just being like a spell, and also it gains life if Heliod, needs that kind of thing. So I'm gonna give it a C, C plus.
I'm gonna give it a C minus. I think that it could see play as a role player, but it won't be like one of the best ones. I could be wrong. It could go all the way up to C plus range. You could be right.
All right, next up, we have Phalanx Tactics. 1 dub, instant. Target creature you control gets +2/+1 until end of turn. Each other creature you control gets +1/+1 until end of turn.
Is this a reprint?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, what do you think of it?
It's pretty all in, but it does seem potent. The problem I'm having right now is that we have so many of this effect right now that like I'm just not sure how it works. Like it doesn't seem like we have enough of the token makers to make this stuff work, but
It's interesting. What's interesting to me about this is that if you do target something like we talked about the 2/2 earlier, then all of your creatures get that.
right. Yeah, it certainly can lead to like 1-turn kills from nowhere, but I'm just not sure that we have the ability to make enough 1/1s for cheap.
Yeah, I'm gonna give this a D. I think that this type of card can sometimes see play, but it needs to be in a very specific deck with very specific cards around it.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a D also. It reminds me of what was the card that gave +1/+1, but then if you had the City's Blessing, it gave +2/+2 or something
Yeah,
like
that's the card I was thinking of too. I don't
Right.
remember what it's called.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of that. I think this is worse than like Heroic Reinforcements because the Heroic Reinforcements was like a 1-card thing that did it
Right.
all.
Right.
But yeah, so I'll give it a D minus.
Okay. Pious Wayfarer is a dub for a 1/2 human scout. It's got Constellation whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield. Target creature control get +1/+1 until end of turn. No chance. Not playing this.
Yeah, I agree.
F. What's next?
Reverent Hoplite, 4 dub for a 1/2, so that's already pretty bad. Whenever it enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 white soldier creature with. Hold on. Create a number of 1/1 human soldier creature tokens equal to your devotion to white. So it's a little Master of Wavesy, but like a lot worse. So I think it's an F, honestly.
I'm gonna give it an F too. I saw people saying that they thought this was pretty good. I don't see it. Relic Existence is next. It's a reprint. Its art is even reprinted. So
Yeah, it looks like they use the same art.
yeah, it's 1 white and 1 for a sorcery, exile target artifact or enchantment. It's just a sideboard card. What's
Yep.
next?
Next we have Rumbling Sentry, 3 dub for a 3/6. Whenever it enters the battlefield, scry 1. F.
Yeah, I'm gonna join you on the F there, buddy.
Sentinel's Eyes, dub, enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 and has vigilance, and it has escape for a white, exile 2 cards.
I don't think that this the first effect is good enough for the escape effect. I think that there might be a cycle of these though, and there could be one that is good.
Yeah, this is like a bad version of like Bone Splitter or something.
Yeah, I'm not into this one. I'm gonna give this an F.
I'm gonna give it an F also.
Yeah.
Shatter the Sky, 2 dub, sorcery. Each player who controls a creature with power 4 or greater draws a card, then destroy all creatures.
I think this is probably a B.
I think this is an A,
Okay.
possibly an A plus.
So I think that it's a 4-mana Wrath that is very, very good. It has upside in your own decks a lot of the time, just as probably almost as often as it has downside. When your opponents have a great creature, I think you can construct it either way. I'm a pretty big fan of this card. I think this is. I'm gonna give it a B plus.
So being real, I think that is definitely just a downside almost always.
Sure.
But I think a 4-mana Wrath is just insane. I think I would trade 1 mana for my opponent drawing a card in this scenario a lot because the difference between a 4 and a 5-mana Wrath is just night and day.
Yeah, I agree. Yep.
And realistically, like Kaya's Wrath is obviously good, but it has. I
It's
mean,
also 5 mana.
well, yeah, white, white, black, black is just not a real casting cost that's reliable.
Yeah, I agree. I think this card is just great. Like,
Yeah, I agree. I think this is better than Kaya's Wrath.
me too. I think so too.
Next up, we have Sunmane Pegasus, 3 dub, flying, and then it's a 2/3, and it has an activated ability of 1 dub. Sunmane Pegasus gains Vigilance and Lifelink until end of turn.
Dude, this
This
is a
is
really beefy 2/3. Are you looking at this art?
this is an F.
Like, this guy is huge, and he's somehow only a 2/3.
Yeah, I mean, it's a Pegasus. I mean, I was surprised that they gave him the extra toughness, honestly. But
He looks like a 5/5. Gosh. Yeah, I'm gonna give him.
next up, we have Taranika,
Oh my gosh, I hate this card so much.
a Crone veteran, 1 dub, legendary creature. It's a 3/3 with Vigilance. When it attacks, untap another target creature you control until your end of turn. That creature has base power and toughness 4/4 and gains indestructible.
Why? Why any of this?
This is a pretty interesting card.
It's like literally, it's like a Geist of St. Traff that already has the buff from its Noble Hierarch.
Sure, it doesn't have hexproof, which is a big deal. It also requires you to have another creature to get it to make a 4/4.
That's true.
The 4/4 also doesn't have flying.
That's got indestructible.
Yeah. What's interesting about it, though, is that it untaps that creature as well. So if you have a creature that has an activated ability that requires a tap, you can tap it first, then attack, and it will.
No, that doesn't work, right?
No, that does not work. You cannot attack.
Wait,
that
hold
if you
on.
do that.
That does work.
No, because it's when it
'Cause
attacks.
It won't be.
Yes.
It won't be attacking.
It will let you double activate something if that's.
But like you can't
right,
attack.
go,
And double
but you
activate.
cannot attack with it and then activate.
Yeah.
Well, you can actually attack with it and then activate. That is something you can do.
That's true.
Yeah, this is interesting. I think it's a B plus.
B plus. I was gonna go with B, so I think we're like pretty close. I think this card. I don't really like this card. I hope that it's not good for what it's worth.
Yeah, I think the fail case is just pretty high, right? Like a 3/3 for 3 with Vigilance isn't the worst, and obviously the upside is definitely there.
Sure. Next up we have Transcendent Envoy. It's a dub and 1 for a 1/2 enchantment creature griffin flying or spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Is this good enough?
I'd give it a D. I mean, there's some off chance that there's an aura deck, and if there is, then you probably want this, but even then, it's probably not super high impact. So
D, I'll join you. I like that. And I think we have our last white card.
Yeah, the last white card is Triumphant Surge, 3 dub, instant, destroy target creature with power 4 or greater, you gain 3 life.
F.
Yeah, it's just a limited card. F.
All right, that is going to do it for white. I'm going to post this video on Facebook and on YouTube so people can kind of see what the set review looks like. So I'm going to stop this video here. Thank you everybody so much for watching. If you want to see the rest of the set review, head on over to patreon.com/ccmpg, go to Patreon, and we'll post all of them on the Patreon, and we'll give early access to people in the Constructed Critics group. So if you're a patron of $5 or more, we'll post them there as well. So thank you everybody so much, and we'll see you guys for the rest of the set review.